Hi, Rich Leiter here, and welcome to my channel. A few days ago, I did a podcast which was entitled, What Is This? And in that podcast, I discussed the notion that we are born in an unknowable chaos. And ever since we are born in that chaos, in that indescribable something, we can't resist the temptation to create form or forms out of that indescribable chaos. We create all sorts of meanings to it, attribute all sorts of meanings to it, all sorts of clever meanings to it, each in his or her own fashion. Philosophers, of course, do it in their fashion, scientists in theirs, I guess artists in theirs, and so on and so forth. So in other words, we just can't tolerate the idea of not knowing what this unknowable something is that we find ourselves in. And I just wanted to expand upon that notion in this video. And here's what I'm thinking. When I was a teenager, in the summertime, my parents used to rent a room or a couple of rooms for us on Long Island, in a place called Long Beach, Long Island. It was a hotel, and they rented rooms there. And then this hotel was actually a senior citizens hotel. It was for old people. I was probably I was definitely the youngest person there by, I'd say 50 years. I presumed that my parents rented those rooms out in this senior citizen hotel because it was cheaper, I guess. I never really thought about it much then, except I felt very much out of place there. I would walk through the hotel lobby, and there would be senior citizens in the 60s and 70s and 80s, just sitting and schmoozing to each other, sitting in their beach chairs, and they would see me, and they would say, "Oh boy, aren't you? No, look at you, aren't you beautiful? Oh boy, the girls are going to be crazy about you." I didn't really have much to say to them. Put it that way. But anyway, so my parents rented these rooms out in this hotel for me in the summertime, and we usually rented it on like the third or the fourth floor of the hotel. And in the bedroom looked out on the ocean, the beach and the ocean. And even though the hotel wasn't much to my liking, the view was absolutely magnificent. So I remember many, many times just sitting by the window there during a hot, sweltering summer day, looking out at the beach and at the ocean. And we've all experienced this. You look at the ocean when the sun is out, strong sun, and what do you see? On the surface of the water, you see the ripples, and the ripples are always reflecting the sun. It's like millions upon innumerable shards of glass on the surface of the water, reflecting for the briefest fraction of a second the reflection of the sun. It's dazzling, shimmering. It could be on a lake, it can be in a river, and I always remember that, particularly on Long Island. And there were all of these just dazzling, scintillating pinpoints of light being reflected all the time. And I was thinking to myself, well, these shimmering, dazzling, scintillating shards of light being reflected, they're not real. They are illusory. What's real is the ocean. That's real. We forget that those ripples, which which reflect the light, are part of the ocean. They are the ocean. But we are so taken by the beauty and by the multiplicity of all of those ripples that we tend to forget that there are no shards of light, no shards of glass. There's just water, endless water. There aren't many things. There's just that one big thing called the ocean, that for all ostensible purposes goes on forever. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I mean, isn't this what everything we see in the physical world, isn't that pretty much the same thing as those shards of glass on the ocean that were reflected when I was a young man looking at them? Isn't the physical world itself kind of the same thing? There's the computer here, there's the wall, the painting, my glasses, me, an infinite number of physical things in the physical world that we see. And we think that all of these things are real, just like we think that the momentary reflection of the sun in the ripples are real. But what if they're not real? What if all of these things are just illusory, just like the shards of glass on the water are illusory? What if the only thing which is real is the ocean itself, and all these the infinite variety of stuff in the physical world that we see, and our thoughts too, the infinite variety of thoughts which our minds generate? What if this is all just illusory stuff, and it prevents us from actually appreciating that one unbelievably incomprehensible this unity, this oneness that just is, without time? It's kind of like, I guess what I'm asking myself is, we can't see the forest for the trees. The trees are the multiplicities of things, all of the artificial forms which man loves to attach himself to. And so he forgets the one big thing which is not artificial and which is not man-made. And that would be the ocean, the eternal ocean of this. It's a pretty thought, but in addition to it being a pretty thought, it appeals to me more and more on an instinctive and on a feeling level. You know, when I go to sleep at night, there's a night light that I keep on, and I'm lying in my bed. I rarely fall asleep right away unless I'm completely exhausted, which doesn't happen often. And I'm lying on my bed with the night light on, so I can see the ceiling. It's kind of a dim, beigey ceiling. You can sort of see the texture of the ceiling, kind of swirls, the swirls of the brush that the painter used. And I look up at it. I'm sure I'm not the only one. And I look up at it, and a lot of the time I think to myself, my back doesn't bother me. My hemorrhoids aren't acting up. My neck doesn't bother me. I don't have any headaches. My stomach's okay. I'm not in any sort of emotional turmoil right now. My mind is pretty calm. And I'm looking up there and I'm thinking to myself, this is pretty nice. This is nice. I can appreciate it more now that I've pushed past 70. It's a nice thing when you're not in any physical or emotional distress. So I'm looking up at the ceiling, and also I can hear every so often in the distance of the town that I live in, you can hear the whistle blowing of the train, which is going to and from New York City. And I'm thinking to myself, when I hear that whistle now, I'm thinking, boy, oh boy, am I glad that I am not on that train going to New York City. It's funny, right? I mean, when I was a young man, well, that's all I wanted to do. You want to go where the action is in New York City. And now that I'm an old one, I just think, what the hell is there except a lot of confusion and noise and chaos and desperate, groping people and commercialism being shoved in your face every second of every day. So I think to myself, well, it might be nice to go back for old time's sake, but I'm pretty happy that I'm here lying on my bed as opposed to being on a train going to New York. So I'm lying there feeling okay, like I say, and I'm looking up at the ceiling. But in light of what I just said to you a few minutes ago about how these scintillating, momentary reflections of the sunlight on the surface of the water are illusory, and the only thing which is real is the ocean itself, well, I'm thinking to myself more and more these days that maybe when I'm looking up at the ceiling, maybe there really isn't any ceiling at all. Maybe that's illusory too.